Race did not exist when the first Africans arrived in the American colonies. It was not written into nature. It was not carried across the ocean. It was built here. In the early colonial world, people were divided by power, not by color, by wealth, by land ownership, by status, by religion. Europeans were not automatically free, and Africans were not automatically enslaved. In the 1600s, the colonies depended on labor, tobacco, sugar, and later cotton demanded bodies. But landowners faced a problem. Enslaving everyone created enemies. Enslaving no one created profit loss. The system needed labor that could not escape. Rebel effectively or demand rights. Africans became that labor not because of race, but because of vulnerability. At first, Africans and Europeans worked together. They ran away together. They rebelled together. They suffered under the same masters. Poor Europeans were whipped. Africans earned freedom. Intermarriage existed. Social lines were fluid. This terrified the elite, because unity among the poor threatened everything. So the ruling class made a decision that would change history forever. They created a new idea, not a biological truth, but a legal weapon. A dividing line strong enough to break solidarity. They called it race. Laws began to appear, not all at once, slowly, carefully, intentionally. Africans were redefined as permanently enslaved. Their children were enslaved at birth. Christian conversion no longer offered freedom. Punishment against them became legal, even encouraged. At the same time, Europeans were given something new, a status that required no wealth, a shield that did not protect them from poverty, but from blackness, whiteness. Poor Europeans were told they were not rich, but they were superior. They were not free from hardship, but they were free from chains. They were allowed to vote in limited ways, to own land, to testify in court, to carry weapons, to patrol enslaved Africans. This was not equality. It was alignment. Race replaced class as the organizing principle of society. Africans were stripped of names, nations, and identities. Mandinka, Igbo, Akin, Wolof disappeared in law. They became simply black, a category invented to justify control. Violence enforced the system. Whippings became public. Families were separated. Terror became normal. The law did not restrain cruelty. It trained it. Black suffering was no longer seen as injustice. It was seen as order. Religion was reshaped to support it. Passages were twisted. Obedience was preached. Freedom was delayed to heaven. Enslavement was framed as destiny. History was rewritten. Africa was erased. Civilizations were ignored. Knowledge was stolen and denied. Africans were described as primitive, even as their expertise built colonial wealth. Race had to be taught constantly, because it was not real. Children learned it early. Black meant danger. White meant trust. These ideas moved from law into language, from courts into churches, from policy into instinct. Resistance never stopped. Africans resisted through escape, through sabotage, through rebellion, through survival, through culture, through memory. Even when drums were banned, rhythm survived. Even when language was stripped, meaning remained. That resistance terrified the system. So race tightened. Slave patrols expanded. Literacy was banned. Movement was restricted. Gatherings were criminalized. Fear became policy. By the late 1600s, race was no longer just law. It was identity. Freedom became racial. Humanity became conditional. Rights became selective. Blackness was equated with enslavement so completely that freedom itself was framed as dangerous when claimed by black people. Any resistance was labeled rebellion. Any demand for dignity was met with violence. Race became self-reinforcing. Slavery created inequality. Inequality was blamed on race. Race was used to justify slavery. A perfect loop. And this loop did not end with slavery's expansion. It became the foundation of America. Census records, property deeds, citizenship laws, all encoded race. Freedom became something to be grabbed, not assumed. Whiteness became something to defend, and it spread. The same racial logic traveled across the world, into the Caribbean, South America, Africa, Asia. Indigenous peoples were ranked, classified, controlled, all using the same template. Race became global. Infrastructure. Yet race has always been fragile. It must be repeated, enforced, defended. Because it contradicts reality. Science does not support it. Genetics do not support it. History does not support it. Only power supports it. And power fears exposure. Because once people understand that race was invented, its authority weakens. Once people see that black and white were created to divide laborers, protect wealth, and preserve hierarchy, the story changes. Race stops looking like destiny. It starts looking like design. And design can be challenged. This is why education was forbidden. Why history was erased. Why memory was controlled. Because if people knew that Africans and Europeans once stood side by side against exploitation, the entire structure would shake. The invention of race was not the beginning of black struggle. It was the beginning of a lie powerful enough to shape centuries. And that lie did not disappear. It evolved.